Bonjour. That always works. So today I'd like to entertain you with a riddle and a question. So here's the riddle. What do Nicolaus Copernicus, Charles Darwin, Sigmund Freud, and ChatGPT have in common? So I'm sure some of you probably have an answer. Keep it for yourself. Keep the riddle in the back of your mind. I don't want you to spoil the rest of my presentation. We'll get back to it. I'll actually start with the question because it's the reason I'm here with you today. Here it is. Can an AI develop a mind of its own? Dun, dun, dun. Actually, as an engineer, I would say it's a very naively put question because as such, I would tell you that it depends on your belief on hard AI, so-called general artificial intelligence. For example, is consciousness a phenomenon emerging from complex enough algorithms, or is it of a very different nature altogether? There's an entire school of thought that believes it might be a quantum mechanical phenomenon. Now, while this is a very interesting debate, I would rather stick with the original question here, the very naive, childlike question, because it's very valuable for an artist. So today, if you allow me, I'd like to speak not as an engineer, but as an artist. And as such, I would like to tell you that my practice as an artist is working on bonds between sentient beings. And to do so, I write, I draw, I photograph, I use physical material like textile and fibers, I use digital materials like images, code, and algorithms. And at times, I need to explore the subconscious, sometimes using modified state of consciousness. And the most accessible one of them is dreaming. Now, I've been writing down my dreams and some of their interpretation for more than 10 years ongoing. And a couple of years ago, I thought I could use this huge personal corpus of data to feed it into an AI model so that the machine would end up interpreting dreams the way I do. Now, dream interpretation is a funny thing because it's half psychology and half magic. Because you see, when you interpret someone's dream, you're entrusted by that person to peek into their subconscious. And for a brief moment, you two share a bond, an intimate one. Now, would I share an intimate bond with a machine if it was able to reproduce the situation perfectly? To be honest with you, I doubted it. And yet I was willing to be surprised and even deceived by my own feelings. Now, that idea didn't come out of nowhere. Actually, it's been accidentally witnessed before. Because you see, in the mid-60s, Joseph Weizenbaum from the MIT Artificial Intelligence Lab created ELIZA, a very primitive chatbot posing as a therapist. Now, while Weizenbaum's original intent was to expose the superficiality in communication between human and machine, he was surprised to see so many people attributing human-like feelings to the program. Honestly, how much can we fool ourselves? Well, hoping to find an answer to that question in the most personal way, I devoted some of my spare time in the following year and a half to study deep learning and natural language processing in order to work out one of those AI models. But that was until, boom. Yeah, I was bummed. I totally was bummed. But after a little while and sadness, I realized I could actually use ChatGPT to further my work towards the achievement of that project. And I investigated, and lo and behold, I found out that some people were already using ChatGPT for psychological insights as well as dream interpretation. So how do you think that went? Well, honestly, I have to say, the first time I saw some of those dream interpretation, I thought, wow, this is incredibly disappointing. I mean, it was boring, it was totally anticlimactic, it was nothing like I thought it would be. And regardless of how good the model was at interpreting dreams, It had no spark at all. There was no bond. Now, it's no surprise, right? AI equals data plus algorithms, none of which has by itself the ability to provide the transcendent experience we're expecting from sharing the intimacy of a dream with somebody. Now, I have gone full steam into naive enthusiasm, and that is okay because I'm an artist, which seems to be an excuse for a lot of things, and that is fine because walking on irrational paths is my way of mapping uncharted territories. And don't get me wrong, that failure didn't make my relationship with AI end up barely. As a matter of fact, it didn't end at all. I'm still using AI for visually inclined projects, but that would require a dedicated talk. Yet what I learned from that first mistake is the sense of polarization around AI. Because I chose enthusiasm with a dash of caution, but I've seen people, artists even, get super passionately hateful towards those new breed of AI. Now, it's as if whatever our reaction was, it could only be something that could be pinned down on a spectrum of passion. Why do you think that is? Well, I'd argue it's not really about the technology and its advancement itself, because as a matter of fact, Google pioneered the technology and you could see stuff from as early as 2015 up until recently, and they've chosen not to share it with the public because they're cautious. OpenAI with ChatGPT and other companies choose a different path, and so they released it to the public and the rest is history. Now, if it's not the technology, then what is it? What is this thing that moves us and touches us to the core? Well, I think we should get back to that riddle of mine. What do Copernicus, Darwin, Freud, and ChatGPT have in common? Well, let's see what they did. Copernicus, with heliocentrism, mathematically proved to our face we were not the center of the universe. Darwin demonstrated that we were not that special, that we did not descend from the heavens, but instead that we probably descend from great apes. Freud, on the other hand, showed that no matter how much we'd like to believe it, we are not in total control of ourselves. The subconscious is pulling the strings most of the time. And today, in an era where our identity is somewhat linked to our professional achievements and to the value we create, here comes a bunch of programs that can actually do what only we seem to be able to do, which is conceive and display autonomous creative constructs. Now, what these fine people and programs have in common then is this. They are deflating humanity's self-centered worldview. In other words, they're striking a huge narcissistic blow to our human ego. And that is a very traumatic experience, especially if you've seen a shrink and you know what it is to talk about that. And it requires guidance for us to be able to grow from that experience. And among those guides, well, I see designers, pragmatic thinkers of our relationship with the everyday. So I'd like to conclude with this call to designers and creatives from relevant fields. Embrace those tools. Do not shy away from the ethical debate they raise, but don't lean in either towards pure antagonism. Learn about those tools and learn from them. Go beyond the use case that you see when those tools are presented. Try to imagine, through analogies, for instance, what they can be and what they can change in our everyday lives, because that's part of your job. And with what you've learned, use your craft and lead. help us, laymen, make sure those tools remain tools and not new shackles. Thank you very much.